ThE, the host of this event, which is created so myself and others, welcome to the Journey of Growth podcast, episode 31. I'm ThE, the host of this event, which is created so myself and others can share a perspective on the concept of it in hopes that one another's journeys will be relatable, establishes awareness, and inspires listeners to adopt and maintain such behavior. The definition of growth is the process of developing new skills, attitudes, actions, or reactions, and also it can increase your overall well-being. For those interested in being a potential guest on the show, you're invited to do so by reaching out to me on Instagram at KiteRaps. And this could be an experience that can enhance your self-awareness and develop your skills as well. So I hope that you will be interested in being a guest with me. For those tuned in on YouTube and Instagram, thank you for joining us. If you have any questions or comments, you can post those in the comment section, and the featured guest and I will attempt to address them when if there's an opportunity, which I hope so. So with that being said, we're going to start the podcast. Today's featured guest is Mr. Eddrick Jerome. Hello, Eddrick. How are you?
I'm good, Kite. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I experienced some unexpected circumstances, which caused a 10-minute delay. Yet I am committed to being consistent and not panicking, and all is well. So
You handled it like a pro, man. You handled it like a pro.
thank you. I appreciate it. What can you tell me about yourself?
Well, I'm Eddrick Jerome. I have a podcast, The Eddrick Show, which is available on YouTube and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm a filmmaker. I'm vice president of content and engagement for Varner PR. Shout out to Miss Sandra Varner. Varner PR is one of the longest and the oldest PR firms in Oakland, especially run by an African-American woman. So I'm proud to be associated with Varner PR. I'm a playwright, a producer. Just produced our first play, Raised in Hell, starring Dion Price. We did one a couple months back in February at the Napa Valley College, and we're close to announcing our next one, which is more than likely going to be in Vallejo. So I've been a creator now in this creative world for a few years. I initially had a long career at Kaiser Permanente in clinical operations and adult and family medicine. So I did that for a long time. And now I get to meet cool and interesting people like you and have conversations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I admire your ambitiousness in terms of the initiatives that you have done in your life, and I'm also happy that you've experienced some outcomes that are pleasing to yourself, specifically when it comes to productions of plays and things that are oriented into the entertainment industry, which is something that is relatable and intriguing to myself. My next, I want to discuss that further as we go further into the conversation. My next question is, what would be your perspective on the concept of growth?
Growth is I mean, that's a 5-hour conversation, but growth is necessary, I think, for happy and productive experiences. Um, to me, it can be painful. It's not always easy, but growth can be challenging. And I think if you're not growing, you're just sitting in the same spot. Far too often you hear people talk about, they get burned out, or and they feel like they're stuck. They're not developing. But growth as a human being. To me, growth as a father, growth as a husband. We seek to evolve and become better. And I think growth and development is something that you should want to do, because without it, like I say, you're just kind of stuck in one spot. and I think growth can lead to happiness.
That's an interesting statement. Um, how would growth lead to happiness?
Because you go from one spot to another, and I think when you grow, you develop, and so like in my case, yeah, I worked in corporate world. I worked in healthcare for all those years, and there was growth in my career and so forth and so on. But once I decided to leave that career and become the creative person I always wanted to be, I think I found a level of happiness in the growth of my. I guess I can refer to myself as an artist in some respects, but um, yeah, growth can lead to happiness because you transition from one position to another, and then you have a sense of accomplishment, and you want to continue to grow. Um, and with growth, you have to try new things. You have to be willing to get out of your comfort zone to grow as a human being, as an individual. But um, I think you can be happy with when you grow, especially when you reflect back on where you were and where you are now.
Hmm.
I think there's some happiness that you can find there.
What would be an experience that stimulated happiness within yourself in context to the professional realm?
You mean in my previous career or now?
It's an open-ended question.
Okay. I think being willing to, for me, I guess when we made the short film Blue Eyeshadow, which is available on YouTube, you can watch it right now. Um, I found happiness in the fact that I could create something, and shout out to Lamont Young, who started and co-produced it, and the great Terrence Ivory, who directed it, and again Sandra Varner, who's executive producer. But it started out as a short story, and the project actually is typical of how things grow. I wrote the short story. It was a tribute to my late brother, who I lost to AIDS back in 1995. And the story was published in Melange, which is Musings on Life from a Writer's Pen. That was part of the Writers Resource Center of Northern California workshop I was in for a while. And the story grew from the short story and the page, and then we developed it as a stage play, again, along with Terrence Ivory and my production partner, Lamont Young. It was performed on stage at the Bakery School of Theater, which is associated with the Berkeley Rep, like a little workshop next door. And we were on our way to fully fleshing out and producing this play. We were slated to perform it during the International AIDS Conference in San Francisco in 2020. Again, thanks to all the wonderful work that Sandra Varner has done over the years with that conference, and just working on addressing the issue of HIV and AIDS in general. And then COVID hit. And once COVID hit, we had to pivot because obviously there were no stage plays going on. There was no gatherings. There was no, you couldn't go anywhere and do a play. And that's what we pivoted to the film. And so again, it grew from a story to a stage play to a short film. And now we're using that short film to raise awareness for HIV and AIDS, particularly in the African American community. And we're doing it in various spots all over the country. So um, that that makes me happy as a filmmaker writer. There was growth there. In my career in healthcare, I literally started out pretty much right out of high school at an entry level job with Kaiser Permanente, and we were making eyewear. And my job was, and I mean this sincerely, was washing eyeglass lenses at a sink. That was what I did. That was for 8 hours a day. I was a utility worker. Um, and from there, I, became a journeyman, or it was a union job. So I became an apprentice, and then a journeyman, and then a foreman, supervisor. And then I, it was one of those situations where you talk about getting out of your comfort zone and growing as a leader. The opportunity presented itself to work in the Department of Medicine. And I was not a clinician. I didn't think I could work in the realm of doctors and nurses and things like that. But I want to give a shout out to Gayla DiMaggio, who at that time was over the medical center, and she encouraged me to apply for the position. and that's how I got into clinical operations. And it was one of those things, like I mentioned earlier. You have to kind of push yourself sometimes to get out of your comfort zone because you're capable of more than what you think you are. Um, and so it made me happy, obviously, to develop a career from very, very humble beginnings of my career at Kaiser Permanente. So I think I answered your question. I'm not sure if maybe I'm going on a little further, but yeah, you can ultimately find happiness, and those are a couple of experiences that I've had with growing in whether it's in the artistic world or in the career I had at one point.
Yes, you answered my question, and I appreciate the elaboration because it enhanced my perspective of your journey in those two industries, and it also um, allowed me to realize or theorize that based on the last portion of your statement, which you said um, you experience happiness through the development of your skill set. Which my follow up question, had you not said that, would have been, do you through those experiences, were you experiencing happiness um, by the results of your efforts, or were you experiencing happiness in the process of these actions? And it seems that based on that last section of your statement, you were alluding to that you enjoy the development more so than the results. Is that a accurate assessment?
Yeah, I think so. And it's not always you're not always going to be happy during the journey. There were tough times when you're in that world, especially in the world of healthcare, which is um, very emotional, very intentional. You're dealing with people's lives and their health, and it's very stressful. And I don't know if people understand just how much stress healthcare workers go through on a daily basis: doctors, nurses, clinicians, managers, you name it. So along the way, it wasn't always, fun. There were some highly stressful times and self doubt and all of that stuff that crept in. But again, ultimately, the result is you end up in a place where you can say, "Yeah, I did that," and I think that's where the happiness and the joy comes from because it just gives you confidence to continue to do other things. So, um, yeah, it's there's I think the song is "There's Joy and Pain," right? So you do have some painful moments too. I hope you didn't hear the ice cream truck just went by. So I got my window open. I don't know if you heard that or not. So
I heard it. I thought it was ice.
yeah, yeah, the ice cream truck just drove by. So shout out to the ice cream truck.
I thought it was going by my house. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I picked it up. So I got my window open. So I'm sorry about that. So
It's all good. Um, and so I'm glad that you were able to stay resilient and persistent through those um, experiences, and also discover happiness um, through those acts that you committed to in the medical industry. So my next question is, at current, how are you currently growing?
Ooh. uh, I think now that I'm in my 50s, you go through changes in terms of your view of the world and just how you relate to things. And I think I'm growing in that. I'm a lot more patient in some aspects of things. I think when you get to be in your 50s, um, things that probably used to bother you don't bother you as much anymore.
Mm,
You tend not to get too high about things or too low about things, and there's things that you've seen before. You kind of have been through this movie before. I think for me, the growth is, and as we were talking about, I'll take for example the podcast. As we were talking before I came on, I've my show has grown to where I'm not doing as much in the political world like I used to, and covering political topics, because I realized I didn't have to do those kind of topics, and I didn't find joy in that. So I'm focusing more on the arts and artists and creative people and writers. And I think the growth is when I started the podcast, you just want to talk to anybody you can talk to. And now I'm a lot more selective. So I think there's growth in just the development of my podcast. Um, and I think there's a confidence that comes with getting to this age where um, you just kind of you just kind of grow and know that you're capable of, you know, your skill sets, right? Now, having said that, I still continue to grow and learn, and in my role now with Varner PR, I'm learning the PR world, traditional media versus social media, this and that. So I think I'm growing there too. But yeah, I just think you find those lessons, you learn those lessons, and then when you get to a certain age, um, you have the confidence to know what you're about, and to know what you stand for and what you don't stand for, and what you'll tolerate and what you won't tolerate.
Hmm. I'm glad that you have been able to enhance your self confidence, which I think is seemingly vital when it comes to unexpectancies, such as someone saying things in a disrespectful way, or some technical difficulties. I think for me, I can relate to what you said, because when I was younger, I tend to have fallen to the temptation of imposing my expectations on the present, and saying like this shouldn't be happening, or this could be happening a different way. And through those expectations, I tend to disengage with the present, and that's just counterproductive for myself, and I end up just shutting myself off to the world. But it seems like for you, you you seem to discover like the importance of not being distracted by things that you probably would have been distracted by in your younger years.
Yeah, that's true. And I think when you get older, things don't bother you as much. And I'm not trying to impress anybody. You know, I think we get caught up too often, and especially when we're younger, and either we were trying to impress someone, or we're comparing ourselves to our peers. You know, why am I not at that level? Or, you know, why are they getting their house is bigger? I mean, you just get caught up in all of these comparison things that really don't matter at the end of the day. So I think there's a peacefulness and some contentedness when you get to be in your 50s. And so, you know, shout out to all the people in their 50s right now, because, you know, we are running the world, right? Modestly. But yeah, you take things as they are, and you're not you're not trying to convince someone, or um, you're not trying to prove yourself, it seems like, as much as when you're younger. So there's some peace in that. If you look for it, you can find that.
Hmm. There was a point in my life where, in terms of what I wanted to do as a occupation, was unknown, and I decided to utilize my logic and realize my capabilities at the time, which was I knew how to cook. So I chose to go into an unknown experience through working in restaurants, and in that unknown experience and experiencing results and reactions at the time, I intuitively realized that I did this industry was not relating to me in terms of me wanting to do it long term.
Hmm.
And the reason why I'm asking that, I see a comment. The comment comes from Delmas. I'm gonna show it.
Sure. What advice would you give to your younger self regarding growth? Um, be patient. Be patient. Um, don't don't let a minor setback uh, get in the way of the journey. And I think when you're in the moment of setbacks and things like that, you tend to focus on on that. But yeah, for my younger self, it would be patient, um, and ride out the journey, because the good days always come after the bad days.
I can relate to that. And if I can share my perspective too, I would say there was a long time where I struggled to relate to the concept of patience. I was like, what is patience? And for me, patience is an abstract thing. You can't really see it, but you can probably experience like tangible occurrences that are symbolic of patience, such as planting a seed into a pot and hopefully through you watering that soil, the seed will eventually grow. But even then, like, because I do like to plant plants.
Same here, man. I have a tomato garden. Absolutely.
But even in the process of planting a seed, the temptation of being impatient still comes into play for me when I was younger, because I still didn't sense what patience was. And I think it was probably when I turned 35, I'm 42 now, is when I sensed what patience is. And in order for me to realize it, I had to adopt a concept, which was the concept of the principle of attraction,
Hmm.
which suggests that how I conduct myself can attract experiences as a result. And so, and I like to use the analogy of an echo. If I'm in a valley by myself and I choose to call out into the valley, that is my initiation. That is my act. That is me putting the seed into the soil. And as a result, it is possible for me to experience an outcome which would be the echo of my voice. But it's also in the realm of possibility that I may not ever hear that echo return to me. But if I do, it's a wonderful experience. And so for me, when I was younger, I used to impose these expectations of hearing the echo should I choose to call out into the valley. But when I realized the principle of attraction, opportunities come when they come. It's not in my control. And so through the adoption of that principle, it helped me to have a better understanding of what patience was. Because I think from my childhood, I think I chose to engage in the conditioning of my mind through my parents that we should be expecting things of life.
Right.
And those expectations for me distracted me from what patience truly was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I literally had this conversation with my youngest daughter about a week ago. And I taught my oldest daughter this too, is that patience is a skill that will serve you well.
Mm.
In my case, for example, going back to my career, the first couple of times I applied for a supervisor position or, wanted to advance my career, I didn't get it. And, there are going to be setbacks. There's going to be, bumps along the way, but being patient, and it's really hard in our current instant gratification society. I mean, people want things like, immediately,
Mm.
and they're not willing to wait.
Mm.
But if you can master the art of being patient, understand the concept of being willing to wait, delayed gratification. All of those things lead to, I think, being more fulfilled because, and something I told my daughter last week is your path is your path. Your path is not someone else's path. And there are things that come to people quickly and early in their life. And some people, it's successful, and some people, aren't successful when they get what they want too soon. But to your point, if you can master that art of being patient, particularly as a young person, it will serve you well long term. Absolutely.
Hmm. And going back to your career in the medical industry, I was curious to know, was prior to you applying for that position, was there a point of uncertainty for you in terms of what you wanted to do, or you had some sort of inclination that this is what you wanted to participate in?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I didn't go to college right after high school.
Hmm.
I was working. I was literally working in the mall. Um, and so, yeah, for me, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I got lucky in getting that entry level job, like I said, Kaiser, and that was just because of the I was selling shoes, man. I was selling shoes in the mall, and I helped this lady, and I was always good at what I did, no matter what it was. Always, my father drilled in me a work ethic, and if you have a job to do, you not only do you do the job, you do the job to the best of your ability, and you make sure the job is done. He always drilled that in me, and she was impressed by the way I helped her. And so she said, "Oh yeah, my because you never know where opportunities come from." Something you mentioned earlier. She said, "Oh yeah, my husband is this manager, and he has this department, and they make eyeglasses, Kaiser." So that's how I got into Kaiser. It's just by the customer service I provided this lady. Um, but yeah, I had coming out of high school. Yeah, I. I knew I wasn't going to go right to college. I had the grades and everything, but college was expensive. Um, but once I got the opportunity, I knew what to do with it. But I didn't know where my career was going to go. And in fact, when I did finally go to college, I went to Contra Costa. I got my AA in liberal arts. When transferred to San Francisco State, my undergrad degree is actually in history. At one point, I thought I was going to be either go into history teaching or writing or something like that. And I briefly flirted with the master's program at back then it was Cal State Hayward as in the fine arts department as a writer. But the career in healthcare I just kept advancing. And so, um, but once I realized that I could make a career out of being in healthcare, then that became my focus. And then later on, after a few years, I went back and got my MBA at the University of Phoenix. And so I brought the experience with the business side of it. And that's kind of why I think I was pretty good in the role that I played at Kaiser. But but I think we get, and I should, the pejorative we, not everybody, but I think there's so much pressure to try to pick a major and to try to pick what I'm going to be this. And we, as kids, we say, oh, I'm going to be a, baseball player, or I'm going to be a this, and I'm going to be a that. And that's good, I think, when you're a kid. And I think you should try things. I think you should try different things before you settle in on any one career. And, most people who go to college and have college degrees don't work in the industry of their degree,
Hmm.
and so, you just never know where the opportunity is and it's going to be. But yeah, I had no idea coming out of high school where what I was going to do in terms of my career.
Hmm. And what what inspired you? I don't know if you mentioned it, but what inspired you to apply at Kaiser?
So I mean, again, it's life takes these turns. So like I said, a lady came in and I was helping her with some shoes.
Hmm.
And she said, "Yeah, my you're personable, and because I was assistant manager, and I think I was like 18, 19 or something like that." Uh, and she said, "Yeah, we my husband's looking for someone for this position. at Kaiser, and I think you might be perfect for it. And so, um, let me. So she actually came back, brought me the application, so forth and so on. Um, and so that's why I applied at Kaiser. That because that opportunity presented itself. I didn't go looking for it.
Hmm.
It kind of came to me,
Hmm.
which is how most often, and what I've seen opportunities, they kind of come like that. You just never know.
Hmm.
And so once I applied and got hired, then that allowed me to transition from the shoe store to this healthcare organization. And again, even starting out at Kaiser, I didn't even know at that time that Kaiser Permanente made eyewear. We made all our eyeglasses for Northern California. I mean, most people think Kaiser is a hospital, but there was a very large eyeglass manufacturing plant in Berkeley at that time. It's in Richmond now, over on Marina Way South. But yeah, it was just an opportunity. So I just kind of let it lead me to this path, and it worked out.
That's interesting because it's like from a universal context. I'm curious to know like why did God or the universe um, manifest this conversation by this woman, then and contrasting that to where you are now. Uh, was there a resource that you acquired from your time in the medical industry that you are utilizing now in your current profession as a filmmaker slash producer?
Yeah, I think project management. Understanding that um, no matter what you do, you should have some sort of a plan.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be an extensive plan, doesn't have to be a strategic plan, but you have to have a plan to get to where you're trying to go. I think working in the healthcare field, especially in the role I had, I learned a lot of skills around budgeting, resource management, materials management. Um, making sure you put the right people in the right place to do the job. So there are a lot of skills that were transferable from healthcare into filmmaking. I mean, filmmaking is literally project management. You manage it from concept to story to script to pre-production to hiring a team to I'm budgeting all of that. All of those skills, as in like any other business, come to play in the creative world as well. Whether you're a filmmaker or a writer or a dancer or an artist, or no matter what, there are skills that are transferable that you can apply to whatever you're doing. That will just make you more of a professional. And so, and then networking, that's a skill I think we don't think enough about, because everybody's on social media, and you have X number of followers or subscribers or Instagram or LinkedIn, and we think that that's kind of networking, but the reality is it doesn't take the place of actually face-to-face networking.
Mm-hmm.
Meeting people, not being afraid to introduce yourself to folks, um, because those connections, to your point earlier, you're planting those seeds, and you never know how those seeds are going to develop down the road. When you make a connection at a meeting, or you make a connection at a certain place, you know, people tend to circle back in your life, and I've seen that as well. But um, yeah, those any industry you're in or any occupation you're in, there's always going to be skills that are transferable to the next step, or the next iteration of your career, or if you want to be an entrepreneur, there are things you can take from corporate America and apply it to your business. So being open to that, I think, is a good thing to do.
Okay, that's interesting. And for those curious on wanting to access your short film, how would they be able to access it?
Sure, it's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube, and you can go to seeblueeyeshadow.com. That's SEE blueeyeshadow.com, all one word. And you can get to the film. You get more information about the film. You can learn about the process we went through. And then we have a YouTube channel, at See Blue Eyeshadow, SEE Blue Eyeshadow. And the film has I didn't know. I guess none of us really knew the kind of response that the film was going to generate. And I sit here now and I'm going to rattle this off, and it's really kind of mind blowing when I think about it. But we've been in 20 plus film festivals. We were in another film festival about a month or two ago. We shot the film back in literally in 2020. Officially released it in 2021, but we've been in film festivals all over the world. Um, we Lamont Young, who's the lead actor. It's a one man. It's basically an adaptation of the play that we did for the film, and again directed by Terrence Ivory. The actor Lamont Young, who acted and co-produced, has won awards for Best Actor in multiple film festivals. Um, I got a Best Writer award at the Townsend Street Film Festival in LA. I think we've been in 5 film festivals in LA alone. Um, we've received Best Experimental Film because the story is compelling. And when you watch, I'm not going to give away the story. It's basically about it's a situation that happened with my brother and I when we were kids. And again, with the underlying theme of raising awareness about HIV and AIDS. Um, the film has garnered. We received a congressional commendation from the United States Congress for our film and its attempt to again raise awareness about HIV and AIDS. And last year, and towards the end of 2024, um, along with Varner PR, we screened the film. We created 2 symposiums called HIV Then and Now. We did one in Jackson, Mississippi, and we did one in Dallas, Texas. We were partnered with the National Association of Black Journalists, Region 3, which is a southern region. And we were sponsored by Gilead Sciences. And part of it was to foster a conversation and to get journalists writing about HIV and AIDS and the problem that's happening right now in the South with African Americans. And so, as part of the symposium that we created, along with healthcare experts and disease control experts, and we brought in activists and had a really good dialogue. Blue Eyeshadow was screened as part of that symposium. So the film has taken off a life of its own, and when people watch it, they're compelled by it because it's such a unique story. And I think we just had the right combination of story, actor, and director with Terrence Ivory, and we created something that's got some longevity, and I think is memorable once you watch it. So yeah, you can go to seeblueeyeshadow.com or at See Blue Eyeshadow on YouTube, and you can watch the film that way. It's also streaming on Awesome TV, which is an online digital platform, and Argo. It's streaming on Argo digital platform as well.
Well, firstly, I'm glad that I'm happy to hear that your short film has achieved accolades as a result of it being produced, and as well as the actors achieving their own personal awards for the production. Um, I hope people will tune in to the short film. I know I will as well. I haven't seen it yet, but yeah, because I never asked you how to access it in our
Sure,
previous conversations.
sure.
Um, and so when it comes to film production, I think the average viewer is familiar with um, the behaviors and conducts of a director as well as an actor or actress in terms of their performance or duties and responsibilities. But I think we have little insight on the role of a producer.
Hmm.
How would you describe the process of conducting yourself as the producer of this short film in terms of it becoming what it is?
Sure. Producers can take on many different roles on a particular project, whether it's a stage play or a film or anything like that. Um, the producer can be the financial producer, where you just, you're the one who goes out and gets the funding for the film. The producer can be someone who brings on board the director and the actors. The producer actually is one who handles and promotion and distribution. So there are a lot of different ways that title producer um, play, or the role that the producer plays on a particular project. It's a combination of all of that. Um, and so when you see, executive produced by or produced by, that's not necessarily one particular job. It's a combination of things, and you're the person who kind of just puts it all together. Now, in my case, it wasn't just me; it was Lamont Young co-producing as well, because Lamont was well versed in film production. This was my first film, and so the first time I've ever been on a movie set was with Blue Eye Shadow. So I was kind of in awe of the process. And along with myself, with Terrence Ivory, it was his first directorial project. He's actually in post production of his next film, in the midst of them. I just saw literally just saw the trailer for the first time today. His first feature film. So we were all just kind of came together. Lamont had a lot of experience in film and television. Lamont Young, he was in the Canadian production of a couple of Nickelodeon shows. He's been in national commercials. In fact, he was in a Super Bowl commercial for Best Buy a couple of months back. So, Lamont's he's that dude. I mean, he's just remarkably talented, can play comedy, can play drama. He's just an incredible talent, stage, film, you name it. So we were lucky to get him.
Hmm.
But yeah, being a producer is a little bit of everything. And so and now I've been able to, along with Dion Price, we produced a stage play, Raised in Hell, the play, along with directed by Dr. Tia Madison. And a similar kind of thing, you're fitting in and making sure things are like me. I was, running the production meetings and scheduling our they schedule the rehearsals, and then you're working on the advertising, or you're working on the promotion. So it's just putting on a lot of different hats, and networking, getting out and meet people and talking to people about it, and you're just a representative of the project, and you take on the role that you need to take on any given day.
It seems how you described the producer role, it as a multitasking type of job, which for some may seem overwhelming, based on the types of engagements that you elaborated on. For you, is this role something that you enjoy?
I do, I do, because it's being creative, um, and as I say, I think coming up in that that boilerplate of working in a healthcare setting, um, you kind of get used to pressure and doing a lot of different things and deadlines and all of that. So I think that, like we talked about earlier, I think that learning how to work under pressure and learning about getting things done, and being task oriented and goal setting and all of that. Yeah, it doesn't that doesn't bother me, especially now, because it's something I love, something it's fun, and when you sit back and you see the end product, it's all worth it. It's all worth it. And having a good team, you have to have a good team of people who are like minded, who are candid, who can have conversations and disagreements and all of that stuff, because I think that leads to a better production, that leads to a better end result, when you have people who can come together and collaborate and share ideas and be willing to trust each other. And I think we had that bond of trust, both in the Raised in Hell production and also in Blue Eye Shadow, where I trusted Terrence's vision as a director. I trusted Lamont's vision as an actor and producer, and they trusted me and they trusted my story. And so I think without that, that's you won't get that satisfaction of having something that's real and has longevity.
You mentioned you mentioned that the producer role can also be a creative role.
Absolutely.
How is a producer creative?
The producer can be creative in, like, for example, if I'm watching a rehearsal, and I see something, it's maybe lending a little bit of artistic, comment or suggestion, and which may or may not be always warranted, and that's fine. But and then it's being creative in the marketing campaign, or and the reason I'm saying it this way is because we're not at the level of $100 million budget where you can hire a line producer, you can hire all of these different people to do these different tasks. So when you're on smaller budget projects like we're on, you have to take on all these roles. But the producer can set the creative vision for the artwork, or set the creative vision for, as I said, the promotional campaign, or hey, one thing I always make sure is that you don't step on the toes, or you don't get in front of the director. On set or on stage, the director is the director, and you respect that, and you don't, as I say, you stay in your lane. But as I say, if you have that kind of trust, you can have, it's like, what if this, or what if that? And, you just offer suggestions. But, creativity comes in many different forms. It's not just, the actual, writing or something like that. It's, maybe we should go to this theater, or maybe we should try it, on this stage. So, um, I think creativity touches everything that you do in some respect. Whether you're laying bricks or whatever, you can be creative as a bricklayer. You can be, finding new ways to do things is always a challenge as well.
Hmm.
That can bring some satisfaction. So yeah, I think that's how a producer could be creative.
And I like how you mentioned venues, locations, which is alluding to logistical creativity. And we'll talk about like spatial intellect soon, but I think venues or locations are it's not, well, having that sense of awareness is something that's not given. I think there are using our sensibilities and our interactions with the world as an individual is a form of creativity, which I do relate and agree with in that regard. And I'm glad that you touched on that because working as a stagehand in my previous career, I was able to experience being in different venues, and one venue is different from the other. And certain venues can be problematic just based on the space and the access to certain equipment and devices. And so to put forth a to make a suggestion to someone who was a part of staff or a production based on experience with the intent to create a wholesome and pleasing product
Hmm.
does seem to also require creativity. So I liked how you touched on that.
Yeah.
And then, as you mentioned earlier too, that your film was in 20 film festivals, which is amazing. And also, when I reflect on how you said that your beginnings and where you are now, and the outcomes that you've experienced from transitioning from the medical field into the entertainment realm, I want to ask you, what was your initial initiative that got you started in the film industry
Uh,
or entertainment industry?
sure. Actually, it was COVID. When the COVID era hit, because as I said, we hadn't intended it to be a film. It was a stage play,
Hmm.
and the idea was to expand it, and we were going to do some more workshopping of it, because the response to Lamont's performance was amazing. We did a run, like I said, a couple of shows at the Baker School of Theater, and what we've always done, and our plan with Blue Eyeshadow is, we always were going to use it and include a conversation with healthcare experts and people of who were working in the field of HIV prevention. And so even when we did the ones at the Bakery School of Theater, we brought in some experts on HIV and had a conversation, a talk back after the play. And we've done that consistently, whether it's at film festivals or, like I was telling you, the things we did with Gilead last year in Dallas and in Jackson, Mississippi. And so we thought it was going to be a stage play. And then when COVID hit, again, that's where the creativity came in, because it's like, wonder if this could be a film. And it it was one of those moments where you go, oh, that's an idea. Well, let's talk about that. And so, because the first couple of people, it was myself and Terrence, and this was before when we brought Lamont in. Terrence had worked with Lamont for years, and so Terrence had said, "Yeah, I got the perfect guy for this role, and he's wonderful on stage." And then turned out Lamont actually had some great contacts with some studios and where we shot the film in Burbank. He had some contacts with film crews, and so we were able to collaborate, and he brought in all those folks together. I, as a producer, handled the financing of it. And that's when COVID was, and everybody was scared. Everybody was scared in COVID. Nobody knew that we were ever going to be able to go to a ball game, or who knew? We didn't know, but we knew a film could touch people, and you didn't have to necessarily be in one spot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we planned it all out. We booked it at the time at Envision 8 Studios in Burbank. And Terrence, and this is where Terrence's vision was so fascinating, because Terrence had originally, the project was on stage, and he had blocked it all out about how, how it was going to work on stage. So he was able to figure out, how am I going to tell this story now in a film? And so when we saw Envision 8 Studios, they had, the different sets that Terrence could utilize in his playground, so to speak. And he was able to block out the different scenes in different areas and make the narrative work. And then you just put all that together with Lamont's fantastic performance. And that's why I think the film is such a, something we're really, really proud of. So that's how it became, that's why it became a film, is because of COVID. And again, starting out as a short story and blossoming into this film.
Mm-hmm. And was the was the play your first screenplay that you've written before?
It's the first screenplay that we've actually gone all the way to fruition. I do have a second script that's done. It's called Dr. Virgil Davis Virtual MD. It was accepted. I workshopped it at the Sacramento Film Festival last December. It was accepted, and I was able to meet with some other writers and workshop it there. So hopefully it'll be my second. But yeah, it was. But I've been a writer off and on all my life. My first book of short stories and not so good poems was published. It's called Grippings. It's still available. And that was, but I've been a writer since I was a kid. In elementary school, I would write these ridiculous stories as kids do, and so I've always had an affinity for that. But I've never been able to turn it, quote unquote, into a career, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I got the opportunity at Kaiser. At that time, I was married and had a kid, and that's that choice you make where I couldn't lead the life of a creative person, because at that time I couldn't rely on the uncertainty of regular paychecks, and so I had responsibilities. I had mouths to feed. So I went down that path of a career. And so, but yeah, it's, yeah, I think I'll just stop there. But yeah.
And so it seems when it comes to a transition, there's usually a leap of faith moment in terms of careers. Was there a leap of faith moment for you when you decided to leave that previous career to where you are now?
Yeah. I've always been prepared. I've always been good at planning and putting plans in action and executing plans. And so I had a 10-year plan to retire early. And I was able to sacrifice and do a lot of things to prepare to retire early. And I got to the point where, in dealing with my broker, I said, well, could I retire? And he said, yeah, if you want, you can retire. This was about a year into COVID, when a lot of people were going through soul searching and, is this who I am? Is this what I want to do? And, everybody had that mortality vision, or, wow, if I'm ever going to do something that I want to do or love to do, this is the time.
Mm.
Uh, but none of this could have happened without the support of my wife. She was always been in my corner, always encouraged me. She's been just fantastic in allowing me to try these things. And she, we've had a great relationship, and I've known her since we were 19 years old. So um, she's been in my corner and just supportive, and allowed me to do some of these things and to take that leap of faith, as you said. And so it got to the point where um, I just didn't want to work anymore. I'd done it for 30 plus years, and I was just tired. I literally was, and that's not to say I was still, ego aside, I was still good at what I did. And I was still a great, at that time I was area director in Sacramento for health plan administration. But it was, I just don't want to do this anymore. And I want to do something creative and to see if I can. And so, I gave myself a couple of years to figure it out, what I want to do. And, and I'm not an overly religious person, but I do believe in God. I do believe that, you, nothing happens without, his good graces. And so, God blessed me with the opportunity, and I took it. And but yeah, there's still times when it's like, ooh, maybe, do I? Because you still see these. I still get these job offers and things like that coming in the emails. Like, do I want to? But I think right now, this is what I want to do, and I'm blessed in that I have the opportunity to do it. And so, but yeah, it was a leap of faith. It was. It
And
was.
it seems what seems to follow the leap of faith are indications, and the indications could uh, be guides to suggest, or the indicators can be, yeah, guides for the individual to become aware if this change of course is of benefit to them or not. What would be an indicator that you've experienced that is relatable and suggests that you are on a course that will continue to support your growth as an individual in this profession?
I think it's the response to the film, and how many people have come up to me either at film festivals or and and I was still working at Kaiser when the film was first released. And so we were actually showing it to some of our coworkers, and they actually showed it a couple times to to raise awareness about HIV and AIDS in some of the meetings and things like that at Kaiser. And when you're seeing your film on screen, and I think to me the biggest satisfaction and the indication that, okay, I think I can do this, is when people laugh at the jokes, when they laugh when they're supposed to laugh, when you write something and, okay, they got it, they get it, or it gets quiet because it's such a sensitive moment in the film. I remember being at the Peach theater film festival down in LA, and there's a particular moment in the film, and I heard people sobbing, and I go, okay. And so many people come up to me and go, yeah, that was, my family, or I went through something like that, or my father, or my this, or my that, and people come sharing their personal stories with you. It makes you confident that you know how to tell a story, and that you can grab people's attention.
Mm,
And this film has done that, and so I think that was the vindication. And a shout out to David Roach. um, David Roach runs the Oakland International Film Festival, one of the longer running film festivals. And David was the first person to accept our film.
mm,
And so our very first film festival was the Oakland International Film Festival. Uh, and again, that was still kind of during the COVID era. And so it was actually screened outside, back down on Jack London Square. Had a big giant inflatable um, screen, and we actually screened it outside at the Oakland waterfront, Jack London Square, and it was. I didn't know what the response was going to be. People had seen it and liked it, but never in a film festival type of setting. And so, again, same thing, when people were laughing at the jokes, and when they were engaged and quiet and paying attention, that was kind of a sign that, yeah, I'm onto something. That yeah, we know how to tell a story. And similar with the project I'm on now, which is Raised in Hell, and it's not my story by any means. Dion Price is an amazing writer. He's amazing as a performer, and it's a similar satisfaction I got when I because he's had worked out to play a few times, but it was similar when you just see people engaged in what you do, and that's valid. I like that.
mhm. No, I'm glad that you experienced some relatable indications that your initiatives are um, appreciated by other people outside of yourself. Um, so I hope you will continue to create and produce things to your liking. And I think that's, for me, as someone who is also creative, is my primary focus. And people's laughter and
Hmm.
their expressing their appreciation is the byproduct of these acts that I do, which gives me personal happiness. Um, and then I think I'm gonna, well, I know we were like 10 minutes behind, but um, I definitely want to ask you about your experience in being raised in Richmond as well. But
Absolutely.
but before I get to that,
Not just Richmond, Parchester, man. Come on, let's go. Let's
okay,
go. Let's go.
excuse me. Yeah, and yeah, that is definitely because there's been other featured guests on the show who were raised in Richmond, but Parchester for me is somewhat foreign to me. I think I've been there a couple times as a kid, so yeah, let's just go into that.
Yeah,
What can you tell me about your experience in being raised in Parchester
sure.
Village?
Yeah, it's changed a lot since I was a kid, obviously, but and actually, I write about Parchester. Parchester is part of Blue Eyeshadow. When you watch it, you'll see I actually refer to Parchester a few times. Um, for me, Parchester was the best of both worlds because on one hand, it was in a somewhat urban environment. It was at that time it was heavily African American, and it was Richmond, and although technically some people think it's San Pablo, but it is Richmond. Um, but at the same time, it was such a rural upbringing because I literally lived, the house across the street, the backyard, and then you were in Point Pinot Regional Park. So as a kid, uh, yeah, we would play football in the street or whatever. But we would go bike riding, or I had a regional park literally, as my playground. Whether it was going out to the pier, riding bikes out to Plum Country, or playing, baseball using the bathrooms as the backstop or the basketball courts. It was, and Parchester, you knew everybody. And again, this was back in the the 70s, whatever. Everybody knew everybody. Um, Everybody's parents or step parents, whatever, knew you. Um, we rode our bikes everywhere. Um, we you could be outside, especially in the summers. The summers were like idyllic because we'd get out of the house like 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, and we wouldn't come home until like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. So it was Parkchester was an amazing place to grow up. We were isolated. And you probably are familiar with the geography of Parkchester. It's kind of isolated, not easy to get to. It's kind of its own world in some respects. But as a child, I couldn't think of a better place to grow up. Just from having that gigantic regional park as a place to play and have fun and grow and all of that stuff that kids do. You could get into a lot of stuff, good stuff in Point Pinole Park, and whether it's being out on the beach or walking the railroad tracks or the history of some of that area though in Point Pinole Park. It used to be I think it was Giant Powder Works where they used to make gunpowder and dynamite and stuff like that. So it may or may not have been some of the safest soil out there, right? But yeah, it was an amazing, amazing place to grow up as a kid, and a lot of lifelong friends from Parkchester and people you just don't forget. And there's I actually left Parkchester when I was about 19, and then I moved back. We had bought a house in Parkchester in my mid 20s, and so when I went back to Parkchester, I got involved in the neighborhood council and under the leadership of Mr. Joe Brown and Virgil Hooper and all of these really experienced, committed community members who took me under their wing. And I was president of the neighborhood council for a while. And in fact, if you go to Parkchester right now, the mural on the side of the community center. They've done a lot of great things with murals along the sound walls now, which are fantastic murals they have there now. But the mural on the side of the uh, community center that says Parkchester touches the world, I actually wrote the mini grant to get that mural done.
Wow.
And that's one of my proudest achievements because that mural is so iconic. When you go out there, people know that mural. And so, yeah, I have a wonderful affinity for Parkchester and its history and all of the great, great people who grew up there. And it's just something about Parkchester, man. It's a unique place.
Why is Parchester named Parchester?
Great question. I know the history of Parkchester is that I believe it was one of the gentlemen, either a realtor or one of the folks who helped create Parkchester. But the unique thing about Parkchester is all of the streets are named after Baptist ministers.
Mm.
Because after World War II, when the shipyards closed down and they thought all the black folks was going to go back to wherever they came from, that didn't happen. And so Parkchester was built. And there's Parkchester, there's Montalvin Manor, which kind of looks like Parkchester, same type of housing. And the story, I guess the folklore is that Parkchester was built specifically for African Americans, which may be true. I have seen old ads where I think at one point Joe Louis actually did some promotion for Parkchester Village.
Wow.
But Earl Flattop Williams, I think was Earl Flattop was one of the main realtors in Parkchester. And I think what they did is they went to the churches, the black churches throughout Richmond, and got people to buy out there, which I think is why some of the streets are named after black ministers. So I think there's a history there that's still to be written.
Mhm.
I know there was a documentary I think done a few years back. In fact, we had done some early research for when Parkchester celebrated its 50th anniversary. We had a big event at that time. That's where the theme Parkchester Came from the World kind of came from. Shout out to Mrs. Maxine Hennigan and people like that, the folks who, well, again, laid the groundwork for me. But the history of Parkchester, I think, is yet to be written. But that's a great question. The name Parkchester, I don't even know. I don't think we ever really explored that.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah,
At least I'm not aware of it.
Yeah, I'll definitely look it up and encourage other people to Google search it. I mean, he's
Yeah,
given us a lot of
exactly.
insight into this small section of Richmond. Is it incorporated? Unincorporated?
No, no, that's the unique part. And I used to joke. I used to say Parkchester was north of North Richmond. Um, but yeah, whereas North Richmond is unincorporated,
Mm-hmm.
Parkchester is definitely incorporated.
Hmm.
And the challenge is if you type in the zip code 94806, San Pablo always pops up.
Mm-hmm.
But Parkchester is actually in Richmond. It's not in San Pablo, which is right adjacent to it. So people sometimes get that confused.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Cool. I appreciate this history lesson on Parchester Village. Thank you for that, Eddrick.
You're welcome.
I know we're running short on time, so we're going to transition on to the multiple intelligence theory.
Okay.
So, for those unfamiliar with the multiple intelligence theory, I like to present this in each podcast. And the reason why is because when it comes to intellect, there's two popularized theories of intellect. One is more popular than the other one. The more popular one suggests that we as individuals have three intellects, which would be mathematical, scientific, and linguistic. And as a result of society adopting this theory, we tend to be measured by our performance in these three forms of intellect, such as when we are transitioning out of high school, we are given the opportunity to take an SAT exam, which tends to focus on these intellects. And depending on how well we do in the SAT exam, seems to determine if we will be admitted to the collegiate level.
Right.
And however, there is an alternative theory which was created by a theorist named Howard Gardner, which suggests that in addition to the three theories that I've mentioned, we as individuals also have six additional, and those intellects are musical and also existential, which is like spiritual intellect, interpersonal intellect, which is, to paraphrase, that would be people smart, the ability to sense the wants and needs of others outside of ourselves as individuals, bodily kinesthetic, body smart, intrapersonal, self smart, and spatial intelligence, the ability to engage with physical objects outside of our bodies. Those who are architects and interior designer seems to have high degrees in this particular intellect. And when it comes to intellect, it seems that we can enhance all of these through practice and repetition.
Hmm.
And I'll use an example of someone who is like a basketball player. A child who is learning basketball may not be as a good of a shooter as someone as like Michael Jordan or Stephen Curry, but if he or she commits themselves to practicing and developing their intellect, their skills will become enhanced as well. And so I present this theory so that for people who may have low self-esteem through doubting their mental capabilities, because they may not have high degrees in math, writing, or science, they may actually have high degrees in some other forms of intellect. And if you're aware of this, this may inspire you to want to continue on your journey of growth through practicing and engaging in opportunities that can help you to do so. So with that being said, Eddrick, of the nine multiple intelligence of the nine intellects, which one or more do you sense you have high degrees in?
Um, Definitely interpersonal.
Mm,
I think that was one of the things that made me a really good manager. Is because I can easily relate to people.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a very keen sense of meeting people where they are and communicating with them as people. One of the things I prided myself on as a manager, I always told folks that, you know, this is what I do. It's not who I am. And I always took that to heart to be able to check in with folks and, hey, how you doing? And connect, which builds trust. And, the best leaders are the leaders that are trusted, and the best leaders are the ones that can show that they're infallible too. They make mistakes. They're human like everybody else. And so, I think I have a unique sense of being able to connect to people interpersonally. Um, Linguistics for sure. I've always had the ability to communicate and express myself, and whether it's written or oral or however, um, being able to say the right thing and mean it, and not just say things just to do you think what people want to hear, or you think, sometimes I used to always pride myself on, especially in my career at Kaiser's, sometimes you got to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. But I think being a writer and being able to communicate effectively is definitely a skill that I excel in. Um, Not really a musician. I love listening to music. As you can see, I'm a huge fan of music. I'm fairly logical. Um, I didn't always like algebra 2 and things like that. I could do it, but, I didn't really, I think I stopped at trig. And in fact, in college, I used business statistics to satisfy my math requirements. So, but I'm good at budgeting and numbers and, uh, you know, being able to use numbers as a way to plan and develop and I was always really, really good with budgets.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are the ones that really stand out to me.
Okay. I appreciate you sharing that. And before we move on to the final segment, it seems that um, training and guides on how to develop our linguistic and mathematical intellects are promoted in society pretty frequently. But it seems when it comes to interpersonal intellect, this is something that is intentionally or unintentionally not um, uh, demonstrated in classrooms or just in casual conversation on how an individual can develop this particular intellect. So, from your perspective, how would one be able to enhance their interpersonal intellect?
Becoming aware of yourself first,
Mm-hmm.
um, understanding that, it's an old saying, but it's true. You never know what someone's going through. Um, Active listening, not just waiting to jump in to say what you want to say, but really listening and hearing what people have to say, um, and connecting to people that way. So, um, I think if you take classes or read books on active listening, um, uh, I don't know if you've ever done Myers Briggs, but Myers Briggs is it's it may not be for everybody, but I was an intuitive ENTJ, an intuitive thinker, and I had that ability to connect to people. But I think listening, hearing what people are actually saying, and being able to understand that, we all go through everything, we all go through things, and that your what you're feeling is not, maybe what others are feeling, or you may not know why someone's feeling that way, because you just don't know what people are going through. And giving people grace, it's not always easy to do, especially in this society, especially these days. Um, but being willing to give people grace sometimes, and to be willing sometimes to say my bad. I'm not always right, and I'm not always
Mm.
going to have the right answers. And so, um, yeah, and carrying yourself with integrity, um, which, it is, I think that's another part of it, is just carrying yourself with integrity. Because if you carry yourself with integrity, you'll treat others with integrity. And yeah, I think that's the way people can work on their interpersonal skills.
I appreciate that, and especially when you mentioned having integrity, because I think if you're just trying to take rather than give, then that can result in you having a lack of integrity, because you're probably just speaking to and wanting something from someone by trying to talk fast to them and not really want to establishing an authentic relationship with them, which will require you to not always having to like say something, but more so having a willing to listen, which sometimes you may not even need to respond. Just
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head, man. Sometimes there's more in silence than noise. It's there are places for silence that are just warranted sometimes. Where you don't have to say anything. You just connect on a human level. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. That's so true.
okay. And if you don't mind hanging for another, because I know we were like
Sure,
10 minutes behind.
sure,
If you don't mind hanging another 10
sure,
minutes, I
sure.
appreciate it. We're going to move on to the final section of the Journey of Growth podcast, and that is called the Interpreting Expression section. So, for those who are new to the podcast, this section is the purpose for this section is because sometimes I in life will encounter quotes or statements that are relatable to myself, and it also I use as a resource to inspire my growth. And I want to relay these quotes or statements to others in the podcast, and hopefully the statement or question can be relatable to the listeners as well. In addition to that, I also like to share my interpretation of such a expression, because I may differ or have a different perspective, which is also correlating to what the expression is from someone else is being expressed in that statement. And the intention for me sharing my perspective is so that hopefully my interpretation can also be of resource to the listeners, in addition to what is being presented. And also, I like to also experience the interpretation of the featured guests in hopes that their expression and interpretation can be relatable to myself as well as other people who are also listening in to the podcast.
Sure.
So today's statement for the interpreting expressions segment is a short but very like impactful statement for myself, and I encountered this by listening to someone else's podcast. I tried to get the name of this individual, but it wasn't mentioned.
Hmm.
But anyway, the statement is, we need culture. And so I want to pass the baton to Eddrick to go first. Eddrick, how would you interpret this quote, and how relatable is it to yourself?
Wow. It's three short words, but there's a lot in that, and because I think we are a combination of a lot of different cultures,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how you grew up, your age group. Um, we need culture because it helps define who we are.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Culture helps define your outlook on life, your
Mm-hmm.
outlook on family,
Mm-hmm.
what you value. And so I think we need culture to help us navigate through our day to day. But again, culture can be many different things. Ethnicity, geography, age. It can be, the uh, I'm of the quote unquote, we were some of the first of the hip hop generation. We were the first video game generation. We have a unique Gen X. We have a very unique perspective on the world. And I think there is something about Gen X culture, about the way we view life and the way we tend to be somewhat pragmatic. So to me, you definitely need culture, because without culture, um, you just don't know who you are. You're just drifting. You're just kind of um, there. Who do you identify with?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's like I say, it's three words, but that's a massive statement to interpret. And you can talk about this one for 3 hours, man.
Yeah, I agree with you. When he said it, I had an instant it had an instant impact on me internally, and definitely inspired me to ponder about it. Um, and I went online and I did some research on the concept of culture, and what I got was, it says humans acquire culture through learning processes and enculturation. Enculturation is talking about engaging in the culture that you're being exposed to at the time, and socialization, which is shown by the diversity of cultures across societies.
Hmm.
Culture is important because it shapes who we are and how we connect with others. It gives us a sense of identity and helps to build community. Plus, it makes life richer and more interesting by bringing in different traditions and ways of thinking. And then it says, now, I don't know if this is an alternative take, but another statement talks about the concept of monoculture,
Hmm.
which I was unaware of. But it says monoculture is a social group. No, a monoculture in a social group can bear risks, such as a single species can wither in the face of environmental change for lack of functional responses to the change. Um,
We're seeing that writ large right now in certain aspects of American society, and I'll just leave it at that. Uh, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, and yeah, monoculture is not necessarily a good thing, man.
and it seems, and so like what I'm curious to know is is monoculture a culture in itself, or is that something? Is it like what? Yeah, what is that compared to like culture?
I think it is, because there are cultures that don't want change, that don't want to be affected by any other culture, and they're not curious about learning about other cultures.
Mm-hmm.
I'm dancing around it a little bit, and monoculture can be extremely destructive, in my opinion. That's
Mm-hmm.
just the way I think, because it inherently invites suspicion. It invites people pulling their, not being willing to be open minded, so forth and so on. That's the way I interpret monoculture.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, cultures that don't interact and don't learn from other cultures or respect other cultures uh, tend to wither on the vine eventually. So for me, again, I think we're seeing some echoes of that right now, with a monoculture that wants to not appreciate and um, respect other cultures at this point.
Mm-hmm. And I think what I'm also curious to know is, can culture be cultivated from an individual, or can it be created by an individual, or does it require a second party in order to for it to come to fruition?
That's a great question. Yeah, I do think you need the latter. I think you need more than one person to create a culture. Um, I think one person can influence, but I think in order for something to develop and grow as a culture, I definitely think you need more than one person. If I'm interpreting the question the way you're asking.
Yeah, and I'll use an analogy of fashion, like you were saying. Well, more so, let's use music. The hip hop wasn't always in existence, but it seems like one or maybe one or more people decided to initiate something new and different, and as a result of this initiation, it seemed to be attractive to other peoples outside of that act.
Hmm.
Or even like, yeah, like fashion, like some people may start wearing their clothes a different way. I think when I grew up in the 90s, um crisscross,
Crisscross.
uh
Right.
they wore their
Right.
clothes backwards. I wasn't
Right.
doing that before
Right.
then. So
Exactly
but
right.
but I just wonder if there was only one individual in the group versus two, would that one individual be the innovator of a culture? But as you spoke, it does seem that in order for a culture to become existent, it would be also based on the scenario of someone adopting the the invention which is created by an individual.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to that point, I think one person can definitely start a culture, um, but it may take some time for others to catch up or for others to embrace, like you said, with crisscross or with fashion and things like that. I think the folks who are out there ahead of their time, eventually, the rest of folks catch up and like what they do. I remember, you probably remember, in terms of influence on culture, you remember when the Fab Five came out, the Michigan basketball players, and they had the gigantic shorts and the baggy jerseys and the black shoes, and people were like, "What is that?" People hadn't seen that. 5 years later, you know, everybody in college basketball was wearing baggy shorts and black shoes and bald heads and all this and that. So I think the innovators probably do. They get out there first, and maybe there are a culture of one at the beginning, but eventually you do need others for it to become a culture.
And so I would say at this point, I am uncertain
Hmm.
if we need culture, just based on
Mm.
our current conversation, especially with um, like someone like you say innovating, you
Hmm.
know. But I do sense that it is, in order for a community to be supportive of one another, the culture needs to be functioning. But I'm uncertain in terms of individualistic growth if culture is needed,
Hmm.
which I'm not saying it's a good or bad, but
Hmm.
at
Hmm.
this point in my journey, I'm uncertain.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, I can see that. I can see that.
But hopefully, I will experience something that will help me to attain certainty, which I'm an open minded person. I am willing to apply any guidance or resource that will help me to grow as an individual. And once I have that experience, I do. intentionally try to relay the messages or the experience to other people based on my perspective.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Um, yeah. So,
Well
uh,
said.
yeah. So yeah, I appreciate everyone who tuned in. We were a little bit behind, but it seems like overall the experience was fulfilling for myself, and hopefully it was also productive and enjoyable for you as well, Edric.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me on, man, because um, you know, I think we need more of these kind of conversations on podcasts and not always just people going at each other. Um, I mean, that seems to be what everybody wants to do now because there is a time and place for conversation and thought and intellect and probing and really getting at what people really feel and what they believe because no pun intended, there is growth in that as people. And so I've learned being on here with you. I've even learned about myself, and I appreciate that. So thank you, and congratulations, and I wish you much success on your podcast, man.
Thank you, and I wish you continued success in your podcast as well. Do you want to briefly touch on your latest episode or
Sure. The one that's up, the latest one that's up now is I had a chance to interview Bridget LeBlanc. She is the first African American woman to head the San Francisco African American Chamber of Commerce. I just recorded today my next podcast with Professor Samuel Kaiser. He is a theoretical linguist from MIT, and he has a new book out titled "Played Against Sam: Repetition in the Arts," and the theory being that repetition can be seen in the fine arts like music and writing and poetry and you name it, and that repetition leads to the sense of pleasure, which is why we enjoy the arts the way we do. It's really fascinating look at linguistics and the arts, and so that'll be going up probably this Friday. So um, looking forward to that one going up.
and for those who are unfamiliar on how to access your YouTube channel,
Sure.
if they were to type in the at sign then Edrick Show in the search, would that lead them to
Yeah.
your channel?
Yeah, for the well, everything you can get everything through Eddrick.com first.
Okay.
That's got a link to everything. You can also get the Eddrick Show on YouTube, youtube.com/ at the Eddrick Show. That's but Instagram, I'm at Eddrick Show, and you can get the podcast not only on YouTube but the audio. You can go to Spotify or wherever you get your podcast audio, Apple iTunes, wherever. Or I guess it's Apple Podcast now. It's not iTunes; is the older one. But anywhere you get a podcast audio, you can search for the Edric Show and you can find it. So I'm out there, man.
Is your play Raising Hell currently uh, playing in theaters, or is
We're
that
no,
upcoming?
we're close. In fact, we're waiting to hear back for the theater, from the venue for the next performance. But if you go to raisedinhell.com,
Mm-hmm.
Raised in Hell, all one word, raisedinhell.com. You get all the information about the play. And as soon as we're able to announce where the next performance is going to be, that you can find it there. So raisedinhell.com, Raised in Hell, the play written by, Dion D. Price, wonderful cat who he's just that dude, man. He's a writer. He writes for the Daily Republic up here in Fairfield. Works with children, youth development skills, has a lifelong of giving back to his community, and Raised in Hell the play. It actually was based on his book, which is available on Amazon as well. And so we're looking, hopefully we'll be announcing our next performance soon. So directed by Dr. Tia Madison, the amazing Dr. Tia Madison.
Cool. Yeah, I hope to. Yeah, if it when it does debut, I hope to be able to watch it live.
Absolutely.
Fairfield,
Absolutely.
it's not far from me,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. I'll let you know when we when we're ready to announce our next performance for sure.
cool. Well, thank everyone for tuning in to the Journey of Growth podcast, episode 30. I hope everyone will enjoy the rest of the evening. Eddrick, if you could stick around for another two
Absolutely.
minutes, I appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thanks again, man. I appreciate it, Kite.
Thank you. And thank you. So tune in for the next episode of the Journey of Self Growth, episode 32. I'll be promoting that on Instagram and Facebook, so you can look out for that. And please do like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when the next episode will be available. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you all. Good night.